Imagine you are a patriotic Englishman or woman in the summer of 1917. The air is thick with the tension of war, and the nation is united in its resolve against the German enemy. Then, on the 17th of July that year, a momentous announcement from King George V reaches your ears, stirring a sense of pride and relief within you. The King has issued a proclamation that will forever change the identity of the British royal family. The name of Windsor is to be borne by his royal house and family, and the use of all German titles and dignities is to be relinquished. This decision, you understand, is driven by the growing anti-German sentiment that has gripped the country, especially after the tragic bombing of Upper North Street School in Poplar by German Gotha bombers on June 13, 1917, which claimed the lives of 18 innocent children. Indeed, the royal family's shared name, Gotha, with the bombers, has only intensified the public's demand for a change. The proclamation therefore signifies the end of all German references and titles within the royal family. No longer will there be degrees, styles, dignities, titles, honours and appellations associated with the dukes and duchesses of Saxony or the princes and princesses of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. Thus, with one announcement, the current ruling family of the United Kingdom became officially English, a complex and fascinating legacy that continues to this very day. In today's episode, we'll explain exactly how we got here, from a small noble family in an obscure part of Germany, through the legendary reign of Queen Victoria, all the way up to today under our King Charles III, as we describe how the Windsor family became English. Before we begin our deep dive on how a seemingly German family such as the Windsors could become English, as it were, we must first clarify, for the uninitiated, just how deep the connections between the English people and the German people run. For native Brits, this will come as little surprise. However, for our global audience, it is a crucial foundation to understand, for it demystifies the entire idea of a German family ruling over Britain. For as we'll see, the Windsors were not even the first Germanic family to do so. With that all said, the genetic and cultural overlap between the English and German people is inextricably connected, spanning ethnicity, linguistics, and politics. Both ethnic groups trace their origins back to the Germanic tribes of ancient Europe. These tribes, which lived in regions now known as Germany, Denmark, and the Netherlands, began migrating and settling in different parts of Europe around the 1st century BC. And among these groups, tribes with names that will immediately become apparent to you, the Angles, Saxons, and Jutes all played a significant role in the early formation of English society. For example, the Angles, unsurprisingly, where the words England, i.e. Angleland, and English come from, originated in the Anglia Peninsula, which is part of modern-day Schleswig-Holstein in Germany, and almost borders the modern German region of Lower Saxony, where the Saxon portion of the term Anglo-Saxon comes from. Furthermore, the Anglia Peninsula is actually a smaller part of the larger Jutland Peninsula, where the Jute tribes come from, which forms the mainland part of Denmark itself. Subsequently, during the early Middle Ages, these native tribes to Lower Saxony and the broader Anglia-Jutland Peninsula invaded and settled in Britain, laying the groundwork for the Anglo-Saxon culture that would shape England. Thus, from an ethnic standpoint, your common Englishman or woman without a doubt has Germanic blood running through their veins, to smaller and larger degrees, and rulers throughout the centuries would have been keenly aware of that. Additionally, the linguistic connection between English and German is deep-rooted. Both languages belong to the West Germanic branch of the Indo-European language family, and Old English, spoken from the 5th to the 11th centuries, was heavily influenced by Old High German and other Germanic dialects brought by the Anglo-Saxon settlers. And despite the substantial influx of Romance vocabulary following the Norman conquest in 1066, a significant portion of English basic vocabulary and grammar remains Germanic in origin. For example, common English words such as house, house in German, bread, Brot in German, and king, König in German, share similar roots with their German counterparts. But these linguistic similarities extend beyond vocabulary to grammatical structures and syntax. Both languages utilize similar word orders in sentences, especially regarding verb placement. Historical documents and literary works from the early Middle Ages reveal remarkable linguistic patterns between Old English and Old High German, further underscoring their shared heritage. And of course, politically speaking, the ties between England and Germany have been complex and varied over the centuries. The medieval period saw alliances and conflicts shaped by dynastic marriages and territorial ambitions, but one of the most notable political connections was established with the ascension of George I of the House of Hanover to the British throne in 1714. Now, with your background solidly in place, it should come as no surprise to you that this German-born King of England was born in none other than Lower Saxony. That's not much of a spoiler if you've been paying attention. The so-called Hanoverians ruled over the British Empire until 1901, including George III, for you Yanks. And interestingly, this also meant that these, quote, British monarchs also ruled the German state of Hanover, although the two realms remained separate. Indeed, Queen Victoria herself, the last of these Hanoverians, first language was German, as her mother was originally from Germany, and she was raised by a German governess, Louise Lehzen. When she later married her German cousin, Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, the couple regularly spoke German together. And although Albert was fluent in English, he and Victoria could often be heard talking and indeed arguing in German when in private. However, perhaps we're getting ahead of ourselves here. In order to first establish how a set of Germans could become quintessentially English, we need to go back much further than the Victorian era and place ourselves firmly in something known as the Holy Roman Empire. The origins of the House of Windsor, initially known as the House of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, are deeply rooted in the historical fabric of the Holy Roman Empire. Now, the Holy Roman Empire, lasting from 962 to 1806, was a political complex of territories in Central Europe that included regions that are now part of modern-day Germany, France, Italy, and other countries, but was historically seen as German because its core territories and political structure were predominantly Germanic. And this empire functioned as a loose confederation of smaller states and principalities governed by the Holy Roman Emperor, shaping the cultural and political landscape of German-speaking people. With that said, the lineage of the House of Windsor traces back to a 10th century Saxon nobleman named Theodoric I of Wettin, also known as Dietrich or Thierry. Theodoric's heritage is debated among historians, with some suggesting a connection to Emperor Charlemagne, one of the most influential rulers in European history, or to the Counts of the Harz Mountains, a region in central Germany. But Theodoric's descendants soon gained prominence within the Eastern March, a frontier region that was part of the Holy Roman Empire. This family established a castle named Wettin, later Germanized to Wettin, marking the foundation of the House of Wettin, hence Theodoric of Wettin being his name known to history. Soon, the House of Wettin would play a significant role in European history, ruling over several key regions in Germany and Europe, including Saxony, Thuringia, and Meissen, areas central to medieval politics and economics. For example, the discovery of silver in the Meissen region in 1116 greatly enhanced the wealth and power of the Wettins, and the Wettins' influence extended through notable descendants such as Frederick Augustus I, Elector of Saxony, who later became King of Poland, and Augustus the Strong, who was also King of Poland and a patron of the arts and architecture. Despite their growing power, however, the Wettins faced challenges from the Hohenzollerns, rulers of Brandenburg, and later the Kingdom of Prussia. These Hohenzollerns, originally hailing from the region around Swabia, rose to prominence through leaders like Frederick William, the Great Elector, and Frederick the Great. His reign in particular marked significant military and administrative reforms, making Prussia a rival to other German states, including those ruled by the Wettins. Therefore, we can arguably say that the House of Windsor not only fought against the German Empire of World War I and the Third Reich of World War II, but they also crossed swords with Frederick the Great of Prussia himself. Now, the Hohenzollerns' ascendance overshadowed the Wettins, culminating in a significant territorial division after the death of Frederick II in 1464. This division split the Wettin territories into the Ernestine and Albertine branches of the family, each ruling different parts of the territory. Specifically, the Ernestine line, centuries later, would eventually lead to the formation of what would become the House of Windsor. Now, during the Protestant Reformation, the Ernestine Wettins, the future Windsors, played a pivotal role. For example, they ruled Wittenberg, a key city in Saxony where Martin Luther, the founder of Lutheranism, found refuge. This protection provided Luther the space to develop his ideas, which significantly influenced the region, making it a stronghold of Protestantism by 1526. Thus, we could also argue that the ancestors of the House of Windsor had a direct hand in helping to form the foundations of Protestant Christianity itself, and indeed, the support of the Ernestine Wettins was crucial in the early days of Protestantism, effectively shaping the religious history of the world. However, after losing in some key conflicts, much of the lands under the House of Wettin began to scatter into smaller spheres of influence, known as the Ernestine Duchies. One out of many of these, the Duchy of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, would surprisingly emerge as the stud of Europe through shrewd intermarriage over the coming centuries. Now, this duchy was modest in size, smaller than Luxembourg, with a mid-19th century population of about 150,000 souls. Yet, the ambitions of the Coburg family reached far beyond their diminutive domain, embedding their lineage into almost every royal family across Europe. This first began with Prince Josias of Coburg, whose close relationship with the legendary Empress Catherine the Great of Russia provided a crucial opportunity for the family. In 1795, Catherine sought a bride for her grandson, Grand Duke Konstantin Pavlovich of Russia, and turned to the Coburg sisters. 3 of them were invited to Russia, and the youngest, Princess Juliane of Saxe-Coburg-Saalfeld, married Constantine in 1796, despite his reluctance. This union, although strained by Constantine's harsh behavior, brought significant prestige to the duchy and demonstrated the Coburgs' ability to secure influential marital alliances. Meanwhile, Prince Leopold of Saxe-Coburg-Saalfeld, Duke of Saxony and future King of Belgium, also began to make his mark in Russian nobility. He distinguished himself in battles against Napoleon, eventually entering Paris triumphantly in 1814. Leopold's reputation as a skilled warrior and diplomat grew, and by the age of 23, he found himself in Britain, where he was introduced to Princess Charlotte Augusta of Wales, the heir apparent. Although there were initial doubts, fortune favoured Leopold. Princess Charlotte's engagement to another suitor fell through, and she turned to Leopold, whose sensible and good-natured demeanour won her heart. They married in 1816, deeply in love, positioning the Coburgs on the brink of inheriting the British throne. However, tragedy struck on the 5th of November 1817 when Princess Charlotte died during childbirth. This event reshaped the British royal family's succession and prompted urgent actions to secure legitimate heirs. However, the crucial moment that would connect a centuries-in-the-making lineage that would eventually rule the British Empire would be when Prince Edward, Duke of Kent and Strathearn, married Leopold's sister Victoria, maybe you recognise that name, of Saxe-Coburg-Saalfeld. Their union produced none other than Queen Victoria, marking the place in our story from which we began. Thus, the seemingly insignificant duchy had grown to shape the continent's history through love and political savvy, creating a lasting impact. However, as we previously noted, Queen Victoria, the last Hanoverian, spoke German as a child. So, how exactly did the House of Windsor become English? To get our answer, we'll have to flip to the next chapter. In 1830, the aforementioned Leopold I of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha became the first King of Belgium with strong backing from his in-laws ruling Britain, marking a notable rise in the prestige of the Saxe-Coburg and Gotha dynasty. Thus, Leopold's influence was far-reaching, notably impacting his nephew, one Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. The family further intertwined when in 1840 Albert married our lovely Queen Victoria of Britain, a union carefully planned by Leopold to strengthen his family's influence within the British Empire. Therefore, due to patriarchal naming practices of the time, Prince Albert's marriage to Queen Victoria embedded the Saxe-Coburg and Gotha name into the British royal lineage. As Prince Consort, Albert was instrumental in British affairs, advocating for various social reforms and helping modernise the monarchy. The couple had 9 children who were strategically married into different European royal families, thereby spreading the influence of the Saxe-Coburg and Gotha line across the continent. When Queen Victoria died in 1901, her son Edward VII ascended the throne, marking the beginning of the Edwardian era, and the official reign of what we now know as the House of Windsor. Edward VII was succeeded by his son, George V, in 1910, and George V's reign coincided with the tumultuous period of World War I, which heightened anti-German sentiments in Britain, partly due to direct attacks on London by German bombers, funnily enough known as German Güter bombers. Against this backdrop of nationalism and anti-German sentiment, George V made a significant decision to rebrand the royal family. On the 17th of July 1917, he issued a royal proclamation changing the family name from the House of Saxe-Coburg and Güter, the House of Windsor. This decision was driven by a desire to align the monarchy more closely with British national identity and to distance it from its German roots. And the name Windsor was chosen due to its historical association with British history and the royal residence, Windsor Castle. In addition to the name change, George V renounced all German titles held by his family as part of a broader effort to Anglicize the monarchy and assert its British identity. But this decision was not without ridicule. His cousin, Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany, made a jesting remark about the renaming, referencing Shakespeare's The Merry Wives of Windsor. After the war, the House of Windsor continued to evolve as the monarchy sought to redefine itself. Despite efforts to distance themselves from their German roots, intermarriages between British royals and European nobility persisted, maintaining the interconnected nature of European royal houses. For example, Queen Elizabeth II's marriage to Prince Philip of the House of Glücksburg, a branch of the House of Oldenburg, of partial German origin, forced him to renounce his German titles and adopted the surname Mountbatten, an anglicized version of Battenberg, before marrying Elizabeth. In more recent times, however, King Charles III has a strong connection to his German heritage, evident in his proficiency in the German language and his frequent visits to Germany. For example, during his first state visit to Germany as king in March 2023, Charles delivered parts of his speech to the German Bundestag in German, showcasing his linguistic skills and cultural affinity. Additionally, the British royal family has extensive familial connections to other European royal families, many of which are of German origin. This network of relationships can be traced back to Queen Victoria, who was dubbed the Grandmother of Europe due to her strategic marriages of her children into various European royal houses. For instance, Queen Victoria's descendants, and thus relatives of the Windsors, include monarchs such as Queen Margrethe II of Denmark, King Harald V of Norway, and King Carl XVI Gustaf of Sweden, all of whom have German ancestry through Victoria's lineage, and now we'd love to see you in the comments. Do you consider the House of Windsor to be a quintessentially English family, or a secret German one? We'll be curious to hear your thoughts. And as always, thanks for your viewership here with us on another episode. Cheers, until next time.